Do you believe that in the 20th century, there lived a man who carried on his body the very wounds of Christ crucified? This may sound like a legend, but it is the true story of Padre Pio of Pietrelcina, a humble friar who became one of the most extraordinary spiritual figures of our modern age. Born into a poor farming family in southern Italy, he grew up in a simple village that would one day become the center of worldwide attention. From his earliest years, young Francesco Fagioni, the boy who would later be known as Padre Pio, showed deep devotion, an intense love for prayer, and an unwavering desire to dedicate his life completely to God. And like the ancient stories of the Bible, his journey unfolded in the very heart of the 20th century, a time of rapid progress, when science seemed to dominate and faith was often ridiculed or dismissed. And yet, it was precisely in this skeptical era that Padre Pio became a living sign of God's presence. In 1918, while praying in the small chapel of the San Giovanni Rotondo Monastery, Padre Pio experienced a life-changing event. He received the stigmata, the wounds of Christ, in his hands, feet, and side. These wounds bled daily, caused him great pain, yet never became infected. They remained visible for 50 years, until the very day of his death. Imagine this, in an age when many believed religion was fading. A simple friar bore on his own flesh the unmistakable marks of Christ's passion. For scientists, it was a baffling phenomenon. For millions of believers, it was a miracle that drew them closer to God. Pilgrims traveled from all corners of the world to see Padre Pio, to attend his Mass, and to ask for his prayers. But Padre Pio was not only known for the stigmata, he was also recognized for the extraordinary graces he received. The ability to read souls in the confessional, to heal bodies and hearts, and, at times, to appear into different places at once, a mystical gift known as bilocation. These extraordinary signs made him one of the most talked about and beloved saints of modern times. Yet what truly defined Padre Pio was not the miracles or the wonders, but his heart of compassion, his tireless sacrifices, and his life of ceaseless prayer. He spent countless hours each day hearing confessions, guiding souls back to God, and founding the hospital, the house for the relief of suffering, a sanctuary of healing and mercy for the sick and poor. Every year on September 23rd, the Catholic Church commemorates the day Padre Pio was called home to God. For millions of the faithful, it is not only a feast day to honor a saint, but also a moment of reflection. Are we living our daily lives as small but true witnesses of Christ, just as Padre Pio did in his own time? In this video, we will explore together 3 powerful things you should do on September 23rd, the Feast of Padre Pio. Each of them is a way to connect more deeply with this extraordinary saint, to strengthen your faith, and to invite transformation into your own heart. But before we dive into the first one, I want to ask you a question. If you had the chance to stand before Padre Pio today, what is the one thing you would ask him to pray for in your life? Share your answer in the comments below. And if you find this story inspiring, don't forget to hit likes that more people can discover the power of Padre Pio's life and legacy. Have you ever heard the story that Padre Pio often spent between 10 to 15 hours a day in the confessional, and at times prayed through the entire night to support suffering souls? This is not a legend or exaggeration, but a simple truth. His life was an endless stream of prayer, mass, and sacrifice. He once said, "Prayer is the key that opens the heart of God." For Padre Pio, prayer was not an obligation, but breath itself. It was the pulse of a soul burning with love for God, and through this unceasing prayer, he found the strength to endure both the physical pain of the stigmata for 50 years and the countless trials of spirit that accompanied his extraordinary mission. That is why the first thing you should do on September 23rd, the Feast of Padre Pio, is to dedicate time for prayer. Of course, You don't need to pray for hours on end as he did, but you can choose a quiet, intentional moment of the day. Perhaps early in the morning before the sun rises, or late at night when all the noise has faded, to truly connect with God. It could be a rosary, a psalm, or even just the whispered words of your own heart. The power is not in the quantity of words, but in the sincerity of the heart. By offering your day in prayer, you open yourself to grace, to peace, and to divine guidance. Many pilgrims who encountered Padre Pio during his life testified that when he prayed for them or heard their confession, they felt a mysterious yet tangible warmth flood their souls, as if a heavy burden was lifted away, replaced with freedom and peace. This strength did not come from Padre Pio himself, but from Christ working through him. And today, when you pray with honesty and faith, you too create the space for miracles to happen in your own life. On this special day, you may choose an intention. Pray for your family, for a loved one who is ill, for the soul of someone who has passed away, or simply ask God to strengthen your faith. By doing this, you not only honor Padre Pio, but also walk the same path he lived, a path of prayer and self-offering. If you find it difficult to begin, remember his most famous words of encouragement. Pray, hope, and don't worry. That simple formula remains his greatest legacy to us, and perhaps there is no better way to honor Padre Pio than by putting it into practice in our own daily lives. So this September 23rd, try to dedicate at least 15 minutes to genuine prayer. Who knows, in those moments of silence, you may discover the peace you have been longing for. Before we move on to the second thing you should do, let me ask you this. If you had 15 minutes to pray today, who would you dedicate your prayer to? Share your answer in the comments below. And if you find this suggestion meaningful, don't forget to hit like, so that more people can be encouraged to join in. If there is one thing that truly set Padre Pio apart, it was not only the stigmata or the extraordinary graces he received, but above all, his heart of sacrifice and his boundless spirit of charity. Even while enduring constant physical pain, Padre Pio never stopped turning his heart toward others, especially the poor, the sick, and the forgotten. He once said, "Love and charity are the keys to heaven." For him, love was never just words or feelings. It was action, listening, sharing, praying, and reaching out to those in need. One of the greatest legacies he left behind is the house for the relief of suffering, a modern hospital that he poured his entire heart and effort into building. Here, the poor and the sick were welcomed and treated with dignity, compassion, and respect. It was not merely a hospital. It was a living symbol of Padre Pio's charity. Love made concrete and visible through action. That is why the second thing you should do on September 23rd is this. Live a spirit of sacrifice and charity. Following Padre Pio's example, you don't need to build a hospital like he did. You can start with the smallest gestures. A word of encouragement to someone in despair. A smile for someone who feels forgotten. A small gift for a struggling family. Or simply a few minutes to call or visit a relative you haven't seen in a long time. The value does not lie in the material size of the gift, but in the love it carries. Whenever you give up a little of your own comfort to think of another, you are walking in Padre Pio's footsteps and spreading the very love that defined his life. In today's world, where people are so easily consumed by the chase for money, success, and recognition, the spirit of sacrifice and charity becomes even more precious. It reminds us that life only finds true meaning when lived for others. Echoing the words of Scripture, it is more blessed to give than to receive. This September 23rd, you can choose one concrete action. Donate to a charity, cook a meal for someone in need, or simply forgive someone who once hurt you. Each of these small sacrifices is a living way of remembering Padre Pio, transforming love into action in your own daily life. Looking back, we see that Padre Pio gave his entire body and soul to God, and God used his life as an instrument of love. Today, you too can become a small instrument in God's hands, if you dare to live a spirit of sacrifice and charity right where you are. So let me leave you with a question to reflect on. If you could perform one single act of charity today in memory of Padre Pio, what would it be? If there is one profound hallmark of Padre Pio's life, it is the way he embraced suffering. For most people, suffering is something to escape from, a shadow that terrifies the heart. But for Padre Pio, suffering became a path to holiness, a bridge that united his soul with the crucified Christ. For 50 long years, he endured the unimaginable pain of the stigmata. Each day, blood flowed from his hands, feet, and side, staining his habit with deep red marks. And yet, instead of lamenting, he considered it a gift, a chance to be one with the passion of Christ. He once said, "Suffering is the greatest book that God has placed before me. I have learned more from it than from any other book." These words reveal not only his courage, but also an invitation for us to see suffering with new eyes. Instead of fearing it, we can welcome it as part of our journey of faith. That is why the third thing you should do on September 23rd is this: embrace the difficulties and trials of life with faith and courage. Following Padre Pio's example, this doesn't mean you should ask for suffering. Rather, it means that when you face loss, illness, or sadness, you don't allow despair to overcome you. Instead, you lift those burdens up to God, trusting that He can transform them into blessings and opportunities for your soul to grow. Padre Pio often advised his spiritual children, never think that suffering is wasted. Not a single tear is lost when it is offered to God. For Him, even the smallest sorrows could become prayers when offered with love. In everyday life, you can live this teaching by being more patient in hardship, forgiving when you are hurt, and keeping peace in your heart even when work, family, or society places heavy burdens on your shoulders. When you choose this attitude, you not only honor Padre Pio, but also embody the very spirit of the gospel. Imagine for a moment, if each of us learned to embrace suffering with faith, how much less resentment and bitterness would exist in the world, and how much more hope, compassion, and kindness would take their place. September 23rd, therefore, is not only a feast to remember Padre Pio, but also a call to examine how we face the trials of our own lives. Are you letting suffering crush you, or are you allowing it to bring you closer to God? And so, let me leave you with a question for reflection. In the suffering you are facing today, what is the hardest thing for you to surrender to God? Many people think of saints as distant figures from history, men and women who once lived, suffered, and died, leaving behind beautiful pages in the memory of humanity. But with Padre Pio, the wonder lies in this truth. He is still alive and present in the spiritual journey of countless believers around the world. Since his canonization in 2002, millions of pilgrims have continued to flock to San Giovanni Rotondo, the place where he lived, prayed, and served. They come not only to gaze upon his incorrupt body, but also to seek peace, healing, and spiritual strength through his intercession. And astonishingly, countless testimonies have been told. Terminal illnesses suddenly cured, broken families reconciled, souls in despair rediscovering light and hope. This makes it clear, Padre Pio is not just a figure of the past. He is still a father, a friend, and a companion in the present. His prayers continue to rise like a river of love that never runs dry. Padre Pio once promised his spiritual children, "After my death, I will do more for you than I did while I was alive." And indeed, that promise has come true. He has become a pillar of strength for countless souls on their journey of faith. From simple farmers in Italy to believers on the other side of the world who have never set foot in his homeland. Each year, on September 23rd, when we commemorate Padre Pio, we are reminded once again that he still walks with us. He no longer lives among us physically, but through his prayers, his intercession, and the living example of his holiness, we are never left alone. Think about it. When you pray to Padre Pio, you are connecting with someone who once lived fully in the love of God, who endured suffering for the salvation of souls, and who now reigns in the glory of heaven. This connection is not mere imagination. It is a spiritual reality, affirmed by the Church, the mystery of the communion of saints. So, what we can do on September 23rd is not only to pray and to live with charity, but also to be deeply aware that we are never alone in our walk of faith. Saints like Padre Pio are interceding for us, supporting us, and shining light on our path. This awareness brings incredible strength, even in your most exhausting moments. You have a friend in heaven walking by your side. Padre Pio is one of those friends. Therefore, instead of thinking of him as just an image in books, try living today as if he were truly walking beside you. Talk to him in prayer, share your joys and sorrows, and trust that he will lift those prayers up to God with a Father's love. And so, let me end this part with a question for you to reflect on. If Padre Pio could stand by your side today, as a father and a friend, what would you tell him? After reflecting on the 3 essential things we should do on September 23rd, the Feast of Padre Pio, you have likely felt the spiritual strength radiating from his extraordinary life, from deepening your prayer to living charity in everyday situations, to courageously embracing suffering. Each of these paths draws us closer to God and into true communion with Padre Pio. But perhaps the most important lesson is this: we must not only live Padre Pio's spirit on his feast day, but carry it into our daily lives. If we only remember him once a year and then forget, we will have missed the chance to let his example become a lasting source of strength for us. Padre Pio did not live holiness for just a day, a month, or a year. He persevered for a lifetime. He turned every prayer, every tear, every silent pain into an offering. And that perseverance transformed him into one of the most beloved saints of the Catholic Church. Today, when we face countless pressures, work, studies, family, and society, remembering Padre Pio is a powerful reminder. We are never alone. We can learn patience from him, courage from him, and the ability to turn suffering into opportunities for love. Imagine for a moment if each of us spent just a few minutes every day in prayer, reflecting on God's mercy as Padre Pio once did. How much less hatred would exist in this world, and how much more peace, compassion, and love would take its place. September 23rd, then, is not just a commemoration. It is a call to make prayer our breath, charity our daily action, and suffering our path to deeper union with the cross of Christ. Most importantly, September 23rd reminds us that Padre Pio is still with us. He is no longer present in the body, but he intercedes without ceasing before God. Whenever you feel weary, lost, or hopeless, you can whisper, Padre Pio, pray for me. Such a simple prayer can open your heart to an entirely new source of strength. As we close this journey, I leave you with this reflection. Each of us can become a little Padre Pio in our daily lives. You can pray for others, extend a hand to those in need, and face your trials with unwavering trust in God. When you do this, you continue Padre Pio's legacy, a living spirit of love, faith, and grace. So let September 23rd not just be a day of remembrance, but a new beginning. A beginning of living more united with God, more loving toward our neighbors, and more steadfast in every trial. This is the most meaningful gift we can offer Padre Pio on his feast day.